Do you ever wake up in the morning and think, I just don't feel like doing anything today? You know that feeling when your alarm goes off and you want to hit snooze for the 10th time? When getting out of bed feels like climbing a mountain? When you look at your to-do list and feel absolutely no energy or enthusiasm? Yeah, me too. And I think everyone feels this way sometimes. Hello, everyone. My name is Emily, and welcome to English Club Podcast. I'm so happy you're here with me today. Whether you're listening during your morning commute, while you're exercising, or just relaxing at home, thank you for choosing to spend this time with me. You know, I have to be honest with you. This morning was one of those mornings for me. My alarm went off at 6:30, and I just lay there thinking, why do I have to get up? I was warm and comfortable in bed, it was dark outside, and I knew I had a long day ahead of me with lots of work to do. For a moment, I seriously considered just staying in bed, calling in sick, skipping all my responsibilities for the day, just hiding under the covers and pretending the world didn't exist. But then, something shifted in my mind. I remembered why I do what I do. I thought about the podcast I was planning to record today, this very episode you're listening to right now. I thought about you, the listeners, and how I want to create something helpful for you. And that thought gave me just enough motivation to swing my legs out of bed and start my day. That experience this morning is exactly why I wanted to talk about this topic today. Motivation. Where does it come from? Why does it sometimes disappear? How do we keep ourselves motivated day after day? And how do we talk about motivation in English? Today, we're going to explore the topic of daily motivation. We're going to discuss what motivation is, what affects it, and most importantly, how you can cultivate and maintain motivation in your daily life. This is such a relevant topic because motivation affects everything we do. Your work, your studies, your relationships, your health, your personal growth. Everything requires some level of motivation. And being able to talk about motivation in English is valuable. You might need to explain what drives you in a job interview. You might want to discuss motivation with friends or colleagues. You might need to encourage someone who's lost their motivation. So today, we're going to make sure you have the language and understanding to talk about this important topic. Before we dive in, if you're enjoying this podcast, please like and subscribe to our channel for more English learning podcasts. It really helps us create more content for you. And if you find this episode motivating, share it with someone who might need a boost. We really appreciate your support. All right, let's get started. Let me begin by talking about what motivation actually is and the vocabulary we use to discuss it. Motivation is the reason why you do something. It's what drives you to take action. It's the force that pushes you to get out of bed, go to work, exercise, study, pursue your goals. Without motivation, we'd just lie in bed all day doing nothing. The word motivate is the verb form. Something motivates you, meaning it gives you a reason to act. For example, my desire to help others motivates me to create these podcasts. We use the word drive in a similar way. Your drive is your inner motivation and determination. For example, has a strong drive to succeed, or I've lost my drive lately. Another important word is purpose. Purpose is your reason for doing something, the meaning behind your actions. For example, my purpose is to help people learn English, or he's searching for his purpose in life. We also talk about goals. Goals are what you're trying to achieve. They give direction to your motivation. For example, my goal is to run a marathon, or her goal is to start her own business. The word inspiration is related to motivation. Inspiration is something that makes you want to do something or gives you new ideas. For example, I found inspiration in her story, or nature is my greatest source of inspiration. We use passionate to describe someone who has strong feelings and enthusiasm about something. For example, I'm passionate about environmental protection, or he's passionate about music. Enthusiasm means strong excitement and interest. For example, she started the project with great enthusiasm, or I've lost my enthusiasm for this job. The opposite of motivated is unmotivated or demotivated. If you're demotivated, you've lost your motivation. For example, I feel really demotivated after that criticism. We also say burned out when someone has lost motivation due to exhaustion and stress. For example, I'm completely burned out from working too many hours. Let me give you some example sentences using this vocabulary. What motivates you to get up in the morning? I need to find my purpose in life. Setting clear goals helps me stay motivated. Her success story is so inspiring to me. I'm passionate about learning new languages. His enthusiasm for the project is contagious. I feel unmotivated when I don't see progress. After working nonstop for months, I'm feeling burned out. See how these words work together? They help us express our feelings and experiences related to motivation. Now, let me share some personal stories about my own experiences with motivation. I think this will help you see how these concepts play out in real life. I want to tell you about a period in my life when I completely lost my motivation. This was about 3 years ago. I was working in a job that I didn't enjoy. I had thought the job would be interesting and fulfilling, but the reality was very different. Every morning, I would wake up with a sense of dread. That's the feeling of anxiety or fear about something bad. I would lie in bed thinking about the day ahead, and I felt heavy, like there was a weight on my chest. I had no energy, no enthusiasm, no drive. I would force myself to go to work, but once I was there, I would just go through the motions. That phrase means doing something without really caring or being engaged. I did the minimum required. I watched the clock, waiting for the day to end. I felt like I was just existing, not really living. This lack of motivation affected everything in my life. I stopped exercising because I had no energy. I stopped seeing friends because I didn't feel like being social. I stopped pursuing hobbies because nothing seemed interesting anymore. I was in a really dark place. Looking back now, I realize I was experiencing burnout and probably some depression. But at the time, I didn't understand what was happening. I just knew I felt terrible and unmotivated. The turning point came when a friend asked me a simple question. She said, "Emily, what makes you happy? What gets you excited?" And I realized I didn't have an answer. I had lost touch with what mattered to me. I had forgotten my purpose. That conversation started me on a journey to rediscover my motivation. It wasn't quick or easy, but slowly I started to figure out what truly mattered to me. I realized I was passionate about education and helping people. I realized I valued creativity and independence, and I realized my current job didn't align with any of these values. So I made a change. I left that job and started pursuing work that was more meaningful to me. And you know what? My motivation came back. Not all at once, but gradually. I started feeling excited about my work again. I had energy again. I had purpose. This experience taught me so much about motivation. It taught me that motivation isn't just about willpower or discipline. It's about alignment. When what you're doing aligns with who you are and what you value, motivation comes naturally. When there's misalignment, motivation is a constant struggle. Can you relate to this? Have you ever experienced a period of low motivation? What was that like for you? Let me talk about different types of motivation. Understanding these types can help you identify what drives you. First, there's intrinsic motivation. Intrinsic means coming from within. Intrinsic motivation is when you do something because you enjoy it, because it's interesting to you, because it's personally meaningful. The activity itself is the reward. For example, I love reading. Nobody pays me to read. Nobody forces me to read. I read because I enjoy it. That's intrinsic motivation. Then there's extrinsic motivation. Extrinsic means coming from outside. Extrinsic motivation is when you do something to get a reward or avoid punishment. The activity is a means to an end, not enjoyable in itself. For example, many people work primarily for money. They might not love their job, but they do it to earn a salary. That's extrinsic motivation. Both types of motivation are valid and useful. Ideally, you want a mix. It's great if you can find work that you find intrinsically motivating, but extrinsic motivators like money and recognition are also important. I've noticed in my own life that when I'm only extrinsically motivated, my motivation is fragile. If the external reward goes away or decreases, my motivation disappears. But when I'm intrinsically motivated, my motivation is much more stable and sustainable. What motivates you? Are your motivations more intrinsic or extrinsic? Now let me teach you some phrases for talking about motivation. These expressions will help you discuss motivation naturally in English. When talking about what motivates you, you can say, "What drives me is helping others succeed. I'm motivated by the challenge of learning new things. My passion is creating art. What keeps me going is seeing progress. I find purpose in making a difference. When discussing loss of motivation, you might say, I've lost my motivation lately. I'm feeling really unmotivated right now. I don't have the energy I used to have. I'm struggling to find motivation. I feel burned out and exhausted. When talking about finding or regaining motivation, you can say, I need to reconnect with my purpose. I'm trying to figure out what drives me. I'm looking for inspiration. I want to reignite my passion for this. I need to find my why. When encouraging others, you might say, what motivates you? What are you passionate about? Remember why you started this. Think about your bigger purpose.
You've got this. Keep going. Don't give up when you're so close. Let me give you some complete examples of how these phrases work in conversation. I've been feeling really unmotivated at work lately. I think I've lost sight of why I do this job. I need to reconnect with my purpose and remember what I'm passionate about. What drives me is seeing my students succeed. When I see someone finally understand a concept they've been struggling with, that feeling is incredible. That's what keeps me motivated as a teacher. I was feeling burned out, but I took some time to reflect on my goals and what really matters to me. Now I feel reinvigorated and ready to tackle new challenges. See how these phrases create a natural conversation about motivation? Now, let me talk about factors that affect motivation. Understanding what influences your motivation can help you manage it better. One major factor is physical health. When you're tired, sick, or in pain, motivation is really difficult. Your body needs energy to feel motivated, and if you're physically depleted, you won't have that energy. I've noticed this in myself. When I don't get enough sleep, my motivation plummets. When I eat poorly, I feel sluggish and unmotivated. When I don't exercise, my energy and motivation decrease. Physical health is the foundation of motivation. Another factor is mental and emotional health. Stress, anxiety, and depression can severely impact motivation. When you're dealing with these challenges, even simple tasks can feel overwhelming. During my burnout period, my mental health was poor and my motivation disappeared. Taking care of my mental health through therapy, meditation, and stress management helped restore my motivation. Your environment also affects motivation. A cluttered, chaotic environment can drain motivation. A pleasant, organized environment can support motivation. The people around you matter too. Negative, critical people can demotivate you. Positive, supportive people can energize you. I'm much more motivated when I work in a clean, organized space with natural light, and I'm more motivated when I'm around enthusiastic, positive people. Environment matters. Progress and success boost motivation. When you see that your efforts are working, that you're making progress toward your goals, you feel motivated to continue. But when you feel stuck or like you're failing, motivation drops. This is why setting achievable goals is important. If your goals are too big or vague, you won't see progress and you'll lose motivation. But if you set smaller, achievable goals and celebrate small wins, you maintain motivation. Clarity of purpose affects motivation. When you know why you're doing something, when you understand the meaning and purpose, you're more motivated. But when you're just going through the motions without understanding why, motivation is hard to maintain. I'm much more motivated when I have a clear vision of what I'm working toward and why it matters. When I lose that clarity, I lose motivation. Autonomy, the feeling of having control and choice, supports motivation. When you feel like you're being forced to do something or you have no control, motivation decreases. But when you feel like you're choosing and directing your own path, motivation increases. Finally, challenge level matters. If something is too easy, it's boring and you lose motivation. If something is too hard, it's overwhelming and you lose motivation.
It's when something is challenging but achievable. That's when you feel engaged and motivated. What factors affect your motivation? What helps you feel motivated? And what drains your motivation? Let me share some strategies for cultivating daily motivation. These are approaches I use and recommend. Strategy 1. Start with a morning routine. How you start your day sets the tone for the whole day. If you wake up rushed and stressed, you'll feel unmotivated. But if you wake up with intention and do something positive, you'll feel more motivated. My morning routine includes drinking water, doing some light stretching, and spending a few minutes thinking about my intentions for the day. This simple routine helps me feel centered and motivated. It doesn't have to be complicated or time-consuming, just something that makes you feel good and ready for the day. Strategy 2.
Connect with your why. This means regularly reminding yourself why you're doing what you're doing. What's your purpose? What are your goals? Why do they matter? I keep a journal where I write about my goals and why they're important to me. When I feel unmotivated, I read these entries. They remind me of my bigger purpose and reignite my motivation. Strategy 3. Break big goals into small steps. Big goals can be overwhelming and demotivating, but when you break them into small, manageable steps, each step feels achievable, and completing each small step gives you a sense of progress and accomplishment, which fuels motivation. Instead of thinking, I need to write a book, which is huge and overwhelming, I think, I'm going to write 500 words today. That's doable. That's motivating. Strategy 4. Celebrate small wins. Don't wait until you achieve the big goal to celebrate. Celebrate the small steps along the way. Did you complete a task today? Celebrate that. Did you make progress? Acknowledge it. This might seem silly, but celebrating small wins actually matters. It gives you positive reinforcement and keeps motivation high. I try to acknowledge my progress every day, even if it's just mentally saying, "Good job, Emily." Strategy 6. Take care of your physical health. I mentioned this earlier, but it's worth emphasizing. Sleep enough, eat well, exercise regularly, drink water. These basic health practices have a huge impact on motivation. When I'm sleep deprived or living on junk food, I feel terrible and unmotivated. When I take care of my body, I have so much more energy and drive. Strategy 7. Manage your environment. Create a space that supports motivation. Clean and organize your workspace, remove distractions. Add things that inspire you, like photos, quotes, or plants. I have a vision board in my office with images and words that represent my goals. Looking at it reminds me what I'm working toward and why it matters. Strategy 7. Find accountability and support. Share your goals with someone who will encourage you and hold you accountable. This could be a friend, family member, coach, or online community. I have an accountability partner. We check in with each other weekly about our goals. Knowing someone is going to ask about my progress motivates me to actually make progress. Strategy 8. Practice gratitude. Gratitude is the practice of appreciating what you have. When you focus on what you're grateful for, you feel more positive and energized. This positive state supports motivation. Every night, I write down 3 things I'm grateful for.
This simple practice has significantly improved my overall mood and motivation. Strategy 9. Limit comparison to others. Comparing yourself to others is demotivating. There will always be someone ahead of you, someone doing better, but that's not relevant to your journey. I try to focus on my own progress rather than comparing myself to others. Am I better than I was last month? That's what matters. Strategy 10. Allow yourself rest. This might seem counterintuitive, but rest is essential for sustained motivation. You can't be motivated and productive all the time. You need breaks. You need recovery. I used to feel guilty about resting, like I should always be working. But I've learned that rest isn't lazy. Rest is necessary. When I rest properly, I come back with renewed energy and motivation. What strategies work for you? What helps you stay motivated day to day? Now let me talk about motivation and discipline. There's a common question: which is more important, motivation or discipline? Here's my perspective. Motivation gets you started. It's that initial spark, that excitement, that drive. But motivation is unreliable. It comes and goes. Some days you feel motivated, other days you don't. Discipline is what keeps you going when motivation fades. Discipline is doing what needs to be done even when you don't feel like it. It's following through on your commitments even when it's hard. Ideally, you want both. Use motivation when you have it, but build systems and habits so that you can keep going even when motivation is low. For example, I'm not always motivated to exercise. Some days I really don't feel like it, but I have a discipline and routine around exercise. I do it at the same time every day. It's a habit. So even when motivation is low, I still exercise because it's part of my routine. That said, if you're constantly forcing yourself to do something you hate through pure discipline with no motivation at all, that's not sustainable. That leads to burnout. You need at least some level of purpose and meaning to sustain long-term effort. The key is finding something that you're motivated by, at least to some degree, and then building discipline and systems to support consistent action. Do you rely more on motivation or discipline? How do you balance the two? Let me share a story about motivation and creative work. Creative work, like writing or making art or music, can be particularly challenging when it comes to motivation. There's this myth that creative people only work when they feel inspired, when the muse strikes them. But the reality is very different. Professional creatives don't wait for inspiration. They show up and do the work even when they don't feel inspired. I write almost every day. Some days I sit down to write and the words flow easily. I feel inspired and motivated. Those days are wonderful. But many days I sit down and feel absolutely nothing. No inspiration, no motivation, no ideas. In the past, I would have just given up on those days. I would think, I'm not feeling it today. I'll write tomorrow when I feel more inspired. But tomorrow wouldn't be any better. I was waiting for perfect conditions that rarely came. Now, I've learned to write even when I don't feel like it. I sit down at my designated writing time and I write, even if what I write isn't very good. Because here's what I've discovered. Often, once I start writing, the inspiration comes. The act of writing creates motivation, not the other way around. This is true for many activities. Sometimes you need to start doing something before you feel motivated to do it. Action creates motivation, not just the reverse. If you wait until you feel motivated to start, you might never start. But if you start, even without motivation, you'll often find that motivation appears once you're in motion. Have you experienced this? Have you ever started something reluctantly and then found yourself getting into it? Now let me talk about dealing with setbacks and how they affect motivation. Setbacks are inevitable. You're going to face obstacles, failures, disappointments. How do you maintain motivation when things go wrong? First, expect setbacks. Don't be surprised when they happen. If you expect everything to go smoothly, you'll be devastated when problems arise. But if you expect challenges, you can prepare mentally to handle them. Second, separate a setback from your identity. A failure doesn't mean you're a failure. A bad day doesn't mean you're bad at something. It's just one event, not a reflection of your entire worth or capability. I used to take setbacks very personally. If something went wrong, I would think, I'm terrible at this, I should just quit. But I've learned to see setbacks as information, not as judgments. This attempt didn't work, so what can I learn? What can I try differently? Third, practice self-compassion. When you experience a setback, be kind to yourself. Talk to yourself the way you talk to a good friend. Would you tell a friend they're worthless because they made a mistake? Of course not. So don't talk to yourself that way either. Fourth, revisit your purpose. When things get hard, reconnect with why you're doing this. Your purpose can sustain you through setbacks when temporary motivation fades. Fifth, seek support. Talk to someone about what you're going through. Sometimes just expressing your frustration and receiving encouragement can help you regain motivation. I remember a major setback I experienced. I had been working on a big project for months. I had invested so much time and energy into it. And then it fell through. It didn't work out. I was devastated. I felt like all that work was wasted. For a few days, I felt completely demotivated. I didn't want to work on anything. I questioned everything. But then I talked to a friend. She listened to me vent, and then she said something that really helped. She said, "The work wasn't wasted. You learned so much. That learning is valuable, even if the project didn't succeed." That perspective shift helped me so much. I started focusing on what I had learned rather than on the failure. And slowly, my motivation returned. I started a new project, applying what I had learned, and that project did succeed. Setbacks are painful, but they're also opportunities to build resilience. Each time you face a setback and keep going, you prove to yourself that you can handle difficulty, and that builds confidence and motivation for future challenges. How do you handle setbacks? What helps you maintain motivation when things go wrong? Let me talk about the relationship between motivation and goals. Goals are important for motivation, but the type of goals you set matters. Specific, measurable goals are more motivating than vague goals. I want to be healthier is vague. I want to exercise 3 times a week for 30 minutes is specific. The specific goal is easier to act on and easier to track progress.
Goals should be challenging but achievable. If a goal is too easy, it's boring and not motivating. If it's too hard, it's overwhelming and demotivating.
The sweet spot is a goal that stretches you but feels possible. Goals should be personally meaningful. Don't set goals just because you think you should or because someone else wants you to. Set goals that genuinely matter to you. Otherwise, you won't sustain motivation to pursue them. It's also important to focus on process goals, not just outcome goals. An outcome goal is the end result you want. A process goal is about the actions you take. For example, an outcome goal might be, I want to lose 10 kilograms. A process goal would be, I will cook healthy meals at home 5 days a week. You can't directly control outcomes, but you can control your actions. Focusing on process goals gives you more control and more frequent wins, which supports motivation. I found that when I focus too much on outcome goals, I get frustrated if I'm not seeing results fast enough. But when I focus on process goals, on just doing the actions consistently, I feel more motivated because I'm succeeding every time I complete the action. What are your goals? Are they specific, achievable, and meaningful to you? Now let me discuss motivation and comparison. We live in a world where we're constantly exposed to other people's accomplishments. Social media shows us everyone's highlight reel. It's easy to feel like everyone else is doing better than you. This comparison can be really demotivating. You see someone achieving what you want to achieve, and instead of feeling inspired, you feel inadequate. You think, I'll never be that successful, so why bother trying? I've struggled with this a lot. I'll see someone who's further along in their career or more successful in some way, and I feel deflated. My own progress suddenly seems insignificant. But I've learned some strategies to handle comparison more healthily. First, remember that you're only seeing part of the picture. You see people's successes, but you don't see all the failures and struggles behind those successes. You don't see the full story. Second, use comparison as information, not as a judgment. If someone has achieved something you want to achieve, that's proof it's possible. You can learn from their path without feeling bad about yourself. Third, focus on your own journey. The only comparison that matters is between you now and you in the past. Are you making progress? Are you better than you were last month or last year? That's what counts. Fourth, practice gratitude for your own progress. Instead of focusing on what you haven't achieved, appreciate what you have accomplished. I try to regularly review my progress and celebrate how far I've come. Fifth, limit exposure to comparison triggers. If social media makes you feel bad about yourself, spend less time on it. If certain people always make you feel inadequate, set boundaries. Protect your mental space. Learning to manage comparison has been huge for my motivation. When I stop comparing myself to others and focus on my own growth, I feel so much more motivated and content. Do you struggle with comparison? How does it affect your motivation? Let me share some thoughts about motivation and meaning. Viktor Frankl, a famous psychologist, said that humans need meaning to survive and thrive. When we have a sense of purpose and meaning, we can endure tremendous difficulty. But without meaning, even easy lives feel empty. I believe this deeply. Motivation flows from meaning. When what you're doing feels meaningful, motivation comes more naturally. When what you're doing feels meaningless, motivation is a constant struggle. So, how do you find meaning? This is a big question, and the answer is different for everyone. But here are some ideas. Meaning often comes from connection to something larger than yourself. This could be helping others, contributing to a community, working towards a cause you believe in, or expressing your creativity. Meaning comes from growth and learning, the process of developing yourself, becoming better, learning new things. This gives life meaning. Meaning comes from relationships, loving and being loved, connecting with others, building meaningful relationships. This gives life depth and purpose. Meaning can come from experiencing beauty and joy, art, nature, music, laughter. These experiences remind us that life is valuable. For me, meaning comes from helping people learn and grow. When I create content that helps someone, when I receive a message from someone saying, this podcast helped them, that feels deeply meaningful. That meaning fuels my motivation to keep creating. What gives your life meaning? What makes you feel like what you're doing matters? Now let me talk about energy management and motivation. Motivation isn't just mental, it's also physical. You need energy to feel motivated. Think of your energy like a battery. Different activities drain the battery at different rates. Some activities actually recharge the battery.
To maintain motivation, you need to manage your energy. Sleep is fundamental to energy. When you're sleep deprived, everything is harder and nothing feels motivated. Prioritize sleep. Food affects energy. Heavy, processed foods can make you feel sluggish. Balanced, nutritious foods give you steady energy. Notice how different foods affect your energy and motivation. Movement affects energy. This seems counterintuitive, but moving your body actually gives you more energy, not less. Even a short walk can boost your energy and motivation. Social interaction affects energy. For some people, social interaction is energizing. For others, it's draining. Know which you are and manage your social energy accordingly. I'm more introverted, so I need alone time to recharge my energy. Mental effort drains energy. Difficult cognitive work, decision-making, problem-solving, these all use mental energy. This is why you might feel exhausted after a day of intense work, even if you didn't physically move much. To maintain motivation, you need to manage these energy drains and make time for energy recharge activities. For me, that includes sleep, exercise, time in nature, reading for pleasure, and quiet time alone. What drains your energy? What recharges it? Are you managing your energy in a way that supports your motivation? Let me share a final personal story about rediscovering motivation. About a year ago, I went through another period of low motivation, not as severe as my burnout, but still significant. I was going through the motions, but I felt flat. No enthusiasm, no excitement, just going through the day mechanically. I tried various motivation strategies, but nothing seemed to work. I felt stuck. Then I had a conversation with a mentor that changed things. She asked me, when was the last time you did something just for fun, just for the joy of it?
Not because it was productive or useful. I realized I couldn't remember. I had become so focused on productivity and achievement that I had forgotten how to just enjoy things. Everything had become about goals and progress. She suggested I take a week to just explore, do things that interested me without any goal or purpose, just for curiosity and enjoyment. So I did. I spent a week trying random things. I went to a pottery class, even though I had no interest in becoming a potter. I visited an art museum and just looked at paintings without any educational purpose. I cooked a complex recipe just for the fun of it, not to improve my cooking skills. And something amazing happened. That sense of play, of doing things just for enjoyment, reignited something in me. I started feeling more curious, more alive, more energized. And that energy spilled over into my work. My motivation came back. This taught me that sometimes, when you're feeling unmotivated, you don't need more discipline or more goals. Sometimes you just need to remember how to have fun, how to be curious, how to enjoy things without any agenda. Motivation isn't just about working hard. It's also about joy, curiosity, play, and living fully. When was the last time you did something just for the pure enjoyment of it? As we start to wrap up, let me share some final thoughts about daily motivation. First, be patient with yourself. Motivation naturally fluctuates. Some days you'll feel energized and driven. Other days you'll feel flat and unmotivated. Both are normal. Don't beat yourself up for having low motivation days. Second, build systems and routines that support you even when motivation is low. Discipline and habits carry you through the low motivation times. Third, regularly reconnect with your purpose and meaning. Keep your why front and center. When you know why you're doing something, motivation comes more easily. Fourth, take care of your whole self. Your physical health, mental health, relationships, and environment all affect your motivation. You can't just think your way to motivation if your basic needs aren't met. Fifth, celebrate progress and practice gratitude. Appreciate how far you've come. Acknowledge your efforts. Gratitude fuels motivation. Sixth, don't wait for perfect motivation to take action. Start even when you don't feel like it. Action often creates motivation. Seventh, be willing to make changes if something isn't working. If you're constantly unmotivated by something, that might be a sign that it's not right for you. Life is too short to spend it doing things that drain you completely. And finally, remember that you're human. You're allowed to have bad days. You're allowed to rest. You're allowed to not be motivated sometimes. Give yourself grace. Motivation is a journey, not a destination. It's something you cultivate daily through small choices and practices. And it's okay if you're still figuring it out. We all are. I hope today's conversation has given you some insights into motivation and some language to talk about it in English.
More than that, I hope it's reminded you that you're not alone in struggling with motivation sometimes. We all face this challenge. I'd love to hear from you. What motivates you in your daily life? What challenges do you face with motivation? What strategies work for you? Leave a comment below and practice talking about motivation in English. I read all the comments and I'd love to hear your stories.
And insights. And please, like and subscribe to English Club for more English learning podcasts. Thank you so much for listening today. Your time and attention mean everything to me. Keep practicing your English. Keep exploring what motivates you. Keep connecting with your purpose. And remember, you're doing great. Even the fact that you're here, listening to this podcast, learning and growing, that shows motivation. Be proud of yourself for that. Thank you again for being here with me today. Keep going, keep growing, and believe in yourself. You've got this. See you in the next episode. Take care.